If we can only consider ourselves successful if we have a 5-figure royalty check, or if, we get placed at all. If that's your metric for what is being successful or what is a win, then you will spend the vast majority of your career feeling like a failure. And that's no way to live, friends. That's no way to live. That's no way to be. And it's not sustainable. What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Qs podcast, your weekly insight into the world of production, library, and sync music. Whether you're brand new to the industry or you're a longtime veteran, I just want to thank you for spending part of your day here with me. I know you have a ton of options out there. And also, as always, a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and neighbor subscribers of 52 Qs who really do keep all of this going. If you want to learn more about how you can join us for free over at 52 Qs, but also subscribe for extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom sessions, a ton of archives, and the ability to pitch to real music library briefs, be sure to stick around because I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later in today's episode. Speaking of today's episode, this industry and this gig can be pretty brutal sometimes, whether it's rejections from libraries, whether it's getting totally ghosted, whether it's so much trial and error, learning new software, the threat of AI, it's a lot. And so maintaining a positive outlook and keeping a hopeful mindset is vital in this gig. So today I'm going to be unpacking some ways that I keep a positive outlook while pursuing a career in production music. And then a little bit later in today's episode, I'm going to be playing something completely different. This is a recent cue that I wrote using Ableton Live 12. Now it's been, well, you know what? I don't think I've actually written a cue in Ableton. I usually use Ableton just for time stretching and warping. And back in around 2010 or so, I did a lot of remixing in Ableton, but I've never actually written a cue that I would write in Logic. I've never done that in Ableton. And so it doesn't even have a title, but I'm going to be playing an ominous tension cue written in Ableton Live a little bit later. But before we get to all of that, how has my week gone? It's been a good week. And I got to admit, I'm feeling a little melancholy because the Olympics are over. My wife Shannon and I, Mrs. 52 Qs, we're both huge fans of the Olympics. And I've got to say, the Paris Olympics were amazing. Not without its issues, and all of that. But the idea of having like an equestrian event in Versailles, the marathon running like by the Arc de Triomphe. And it's just, Paris is beautiful. Paris put on such an amazing show. The amazing athletes, the inspirational stories. And it felt so good to feel hope. The world is a crazy place right now. And especially if you're in the US, there is no shortage of controversies and there's no shortage of stressors and anxiety-inducing events that seem to happen on the daily and have kind of been happening on the daily for like the last 10 years. And Paris reminded me that we are all on a shared planet. Humans are one large organism, and we have a responsibility to our brothers and sisters across the world to be just good citizens of the planet. And everybody coming together in the Paris Olympics, it just really reminded me what can happen when we put aside our differences and come together under the banner of an agreed upon purpose. And in this case, it's sport and gymnastics and kayak cross and breakdancing, which was inexplicably weird. And well, I enjoyed it. I really, really loved it. I mean, I got to admit, when I saw that breakdancing was an Olympic sport, the first thing I thought was, huh? And then the next thing I thought was, okay, let's see some like world-class level breakdancers. And we got some of that, but then we got some not that. Watching like the fencing and not having a clue what was happening, because it would be like, and fight, and done. And what am I seeing? Watching the men's and the women's basketball, USA, that was amazing. Watching the table tennis, there was like, I think, a Swiss player who hit like the craziest backspin shot I have ever seen. It looked faker than the ping pong in Forrest Gump, the ping pong scene. But that was real. Watching all of the track, watching swimmers break record after record. Watching, like I mentioned, the kayak cross, which let's put 4 kayakers, in a river and point them all at one direction and put obstacles in there and wonder how in the world they all don't bludgeon each other with their paddles and their kayaks impaling. It just really, Shannon and I watched so much of it, and we're sad it's over, but we're happy it happened. And it reminded me of what can be done when humanity all kind of agrees on a thing and agrees that this is a good thing and we want goodness to come from it. So that's really what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. Of course, 2 weeks ago was our week off vacation. And then last week we were finishing and watching the closing ceremonies. Were delightfully weird and very, very French, and the stark kind of contrast of like French opera smash cut to like Tom Cruise rappelling down and then riding a motorcycle into Los Angeles, and Snoop Dogg and Chili Peppers and Billie Eilish. It was very much kind of a cultural contrast, but one wasn't better or worse than the other. But that's what we've been up to, and it really reminded me, like I said, of how good humans can be to each other when we all can find common ground. And so that gave me encouragement, which kind of leads into today's topic, which is what are the things that I do personally to keep a positive attitude? How can I keep going in the face of rejection from libraries, being ghosted by a library, not understanding if they give us feedback, revision after revision, never making error, or putting something out there and it never gets placed, and figuring things out, and having just worked on this Ableton cue, feeling like I'm composing like with blinders on. But I wanted to talk about 4 things that I actively do to help keep a positive attitude in the light of all of the things all of the headwind as we are working on this career. And the first thing that I do is I look to believe the best in people. I always look for opportunities to believe the best in people. For example, let's say that I submit a cue to a library and I don't hear back from them in a month or a month and a half or 2 months. Well, actually, let me reset that. Let's say the hypothetical is that a library says they want my music, and so I submit an album to them, and we've done the paperwork and everything, so this isn't like anything shady happening, but this absolutely happens. You submit to a library, they want it, they ask for the album, you put the album out there, and then you hear nothing. You feel like you're being ghosted, they're not responding to your emails, and your brain starts to tell you stories or lies. Your brain will substitute your insecurities as fact when you don't have information. And so the stories that you might start telling yourself is, oh, they don't like it. Or they're just trying to find a nice way to tell me that it's not going to work. Or oh my gosh, they're stealing my music. They've taken it and you start just telling all of these lies, which are just being reinforced by your insecurities and your own doubts that you have on yourself. But if you believe first, don't go to the cynical place, but believe first that people are inherently good and give them the benefit of the doubt. Because what's more likely is that the library got busy. It's more likely that they didn't steal your music, or they're not ghosting you because they don't want it, but they're not responding because they don't have the bandwidth and haven't had the bandwidth to get back to you in a manner that is most respectful of your time. And I know that feels weird, but as somebody who is finding themselves more and more on the publishing side of the business, I can tell you that when you are ingesting a lot of music, that it can be really easy to see an email come in and you're like, oh man, I really need to respond to Bob here. But I want to make sure that when I write that email back, that Bob has my undivided attention, and Bob deserves my undivided attention. So I can't respond right now. So instead, I'm going to pin it, or I'm going to create a to-do, and I will come back to it later. And later becomes later and later. I mean, I'm not going to pull it up, but I can show you my email and show you all of the emails that I have flagged that need responses that I just haven't responded to because I don't just want to respond flippantly. Now, the truth is that Bob would appreciate a message received. Thank you so much for sending this. I will get back to you. That's better than ghosting. And so I'm trying to be better about that. And there's other issues of time management and all of that and professional courtesy. But being on this side of things, I can see how a library could easily get overwhelmed. I could absolutely see it because I have found myself overwhelmed. So I know how that fire hose of input can really overwhelm a library, overwhelm a small business. Because let's keep in mind that most of these libraries are small businesses run by just a handful of people trying to wrangle hundreds, if not thousands, of files and submissions. And so it can be really, really overwhelming. But it all boils down to believing the best in people, believing that humans and human nature is inherently good, and people aren't out to get me. People aren't out to take advantage of me. And it's a very non-cynical, non-nihilistic approach that takes constant effort, if I'm being honest, especially in our economic and political climate, especially here in the US. It's really, really tough. It's really, really tough. But believing the best in people, hoping for the best, being patient. But number one, in any situation that you think might start feeling sideways, start by believing the best in people. So that's number one. Number two, the second way that I work to stay positive in a challenging, ego-bruising industry is I do everything I can to celebrate small wins. Any kind of win, I will acknowledge and celebrate and treat it like, all right, that was a good thing that I did, and recognize it. And I don't mean, buy yourself, a video game system every time you finish a queue. Not necessarily anything like that, but it might be All right, you could reward yourself with a coffee, or it might just be recognizing, hey, that's a thing that is good, and I have accomplished this thing. For some of us, it's finishing a cue. Here at 52 Qs, we work towards 1 Q per week, but not everybody can hit that pace, and that's fine. Maybe it's 1 Q a month, but celebrating that thing as a win and that thing as a victory. And no win is too small. It doesn't matter what it is. And this even goes beyond just the production music space. We could talk about life, it could be going to the gym. It could be deciding not to have the second cookie. It could be deciding to make better exercise choices. I decided to get up today and I went for my morning walk. That's true. I had a doctor's appointment just this morning at 7:15 in the morning. And when I woke up, and we all know that I get up between 4 and 4:30 every day, or every weekday, and I had the thought, I have a doctor's appointment today, so maybe I won't do my 2-mile walk. But then I thought, yep, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go for it. And so I did. Got up, did my walk, did my meditation, and I didn't have enough time to come up to the studio and really do anything production music or Full Sail related or what. I couldn't do any of that stuff, but I did not regret going for the walk, which is kind of true about any exercise. Nobody ever regrets exercising, but I found myself regretting not having exercised. And I'm like, that was a poor choice. But the good news is that the next choice you have is a perfect opportunity to have a win. Because if we're going to believe the best in people, like we do other folks, other libraries, and then we sure as heck have to believe the best in ourselves. And so if you chose not to exercise this morning, or chose not to write a cue today because you were being lazy or procrastinating or whatever, that's cool. Don't sit in that failure. Instead, manufacture a win tomorrow. And then you can celebrate that. And you can celebrate however you want. Celebrate by this morning. I went and I got some bagels on the way home. That was my little celebration. Got some bagels for me and Shannon, some bagels and coffee, and got my blood drawn, had my whole workup. I learned that, having recently turned 50 years old, that colonoscopies are no longer an optional thing. Yep. So, I'm probably not gonna do a live stream from the colonoscopy, but that's what's happening. Parenthetically, during my doctor's appointment today, I have been noticing that my oral stereo image has been a little off lately. Just been a little off. I felt like things aren't quite, and I'm worrying. Okay, I'm not hearing much above like 14 or 15K. Is this just getting old, which is a thing, right? Or is something else happening here? And my tinnitus has really started acting up again. So I asked the doctor to look at it, and sure enough, and my ears were massively blocked. And by the way, it's trigger warning for anybody who's grossed out by ear stuff or by human stuff. So if you want to fast forward over the next 5 minutes, that's fine. But can I just be real with you? Can I just be real? So they looked at it and they're like, yep, massive earwax buildup. I know, gross, right? But massive earwax buildup in both ears. And I know not to put Q-tips in my ear. I am very, very aware of how to take care of my ears. But the other thing that has been affecting that is I wear AirPods, basically in-ear headphones, practically every day. And over the years, that has just compacted earwax in and in and in, which meant that during my my exam today, they had to bring out this little spray bottle looking thing with hot water. It wasn't peroxide or anything. It was just hot water, and blasted it. It was one of, if not the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it was sustained. And it was like, and I'm sitting there with my cup and water's just all dripping down. And I have like this little pad on my ear, and she's like trying to talk to me. The nurse is trying to talk to me, who is really, really sweet and kind and tender about the whole thing. And she kind of apologized, like, no, do your thing. And they got some of it out, but then they had to like get this little pokey thing to go in and start scraping. It was like, ugh, again, I'm sorry. I know. I hope you're not eating, but they pulled out this massive blockage from both ears. So now I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should have been putting a de-esser on all of my podcast. And I'm hearing like I can hear these types of things. And so the high frequencies have somewhat returned, but that was this morning. And there was no small part of me who was like, maybe I can postpone it because I don't like needles and I don't like doctors. I had to draw blood for my annual blood work. But I'm glad I went. And to celebrate that, we got bagels and coffee on the way home. So however you celebrate, that's up to you. It doesn't have to be food, whatever you do, just in moderation. If you get a drink, then don't go nuts. But recognize that here is a thing that was an obstacle, or maybe you were blocked about, or maybe you had resistance about. Do that thing. And if you need to do that thing in stages, if you need to get people to help you get there, then do that. And then when it happens and when you're done, take time to note and recognize that you did the thing that you didn't necessarily want to do, but you did it anyway because it's good for you, or it's gonna move you forward in your career. And then celebrate that, because it's in the small wins that we feel successful. If we can feel like we can only celebrate a win if it's a big win, if we can only consider ourselves successful if we have a 5-figure royalty check, or if, we get placed at all. If that's your metric for what is being successful or what is a win, then you will spend the vast majority of your career feeling like a failure. And that's no way to live, friends. That's no way to live. That's no way to be. And it's not sustainable. And it just chips away at you. So yes, going back to health, and if your goal is to lose 50 pounds, and the only way that you will consider having succeeded is if you lose 50 pounds, then you will spend however long it takes feeling like you haven't succeeded yet. When every time you step on the scale and the number is less than it was the day before, or every time you sit down at a meal and you say no to the second helping, or if you say, I'm going to get unsweetened tea instead of sweetened tea because, here we get sweet tea, I know. Or if it was like, you know what, I'm going to have the asparagus, the grilled asparagus instead of the French fries, that is a win, because you have overcome a point of resistance. And any time you overcome any point of resistance, whether internal or external, then that is absolutely cause for celebration. And I guess I'm giving you permission. You have my permission to celebrate that win. By the way, I keep using this term resistance, and this is coined by Stephen Pressfield in his book, War of Art. I would absolutely recommend that you check that out. I'll put a link to that in the description below, the link to the War of Art. It will be an Amazon affiliate link, which means that I might get a little cheddar if you buy it, but it's not at no extra cost to you. But The War of Art, he talks about resistance, and resistance being anything that comes up in the face or looks to keep you from doing something which you're trying to do to become a better version of yourself. Anytime you push into something new, try something new, are looking to improve yourself, then often we are met with resistance. And it's that resistance, which is very, very sneaky and very, very effective at its job, keeps us from doing that thing. So I say, anytime that you have overcome any point of resistance, then that is called for celebration, because celebrating a win, in addition to buoying your motivation, is kryptonite to resistance. Let me say that again. Acknowledging and celebrating a win over any form of resistance, whether internal or external, is kryptonite to that resistance. So that's number 2. Number 1, believe the best in people. Number 2, celebrate even the smallest win. Number 3, the third way that I keep positive, and that is treating every setback that you receive, any loss, we talked about wins, but any setback as a teaching moment. That means if you get a return from a library, instead of that library is wrong, which they might be, but that's all right. Instead of feeling our ego get bruised, ask yourself, what's the takeaway? What can I learn to change? What can I change? What needs to shift that can maybe prevent that from happening again? What can I learn from this? Even if you don't agree with it. For example, last year when I started Year of Taxi, and if you're a longtime podcast listener, you'll know this story. Just 2 words, slide whistle, and you know what I'm about to say. When I started Year of Taxi last year, I submitted a dramedy cue that was going along swimmingly. And in the middle of the library, in the middle of writing it, I thought, what would be really cool? I'm going to insert slide whistle because I think that would be really, really cool. In fact, here, give me a second. I'll play it for you. All right, so this is Waltz of Shame, which I wrote. It was week 2, so this was the second cue of my Year of Taxi. I had committed to writing 1 cue per week. A taxi. Anyway, you can listen to 2023 podcast and hear all about that. And so far, it's a pretty standard garden variety dramedy cue. And so I thought, what else can we kind of add to this to add extra little quirky flavors? What to make it sound really super interesting? And I thought, you know what? I think slide whistle would be really, really cool here. And the reason I even had a slide whistle is slide whistle shows up a lot in percussion scores for musicals. And so I had it from Sondheim's A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. So I had it and I thought, you know what? Let's add it right here. And I'm like, you know what? This is amazing. This is stellar. Oh my gosh. And so I shipped it off, sent it along its way up to the taxi brief looking for dramedy cues, and they didn't dig it. They didn't like it. They thought it was really, really good. But do you want to take a guess? Do you want to take a guess what the feedback was? Anybody want to take a guess? They said it sounded too much like Halloween. Because it never occurred to me that slide whistle taken out of context, is going to sound like a theremin. And so after I licked my wounds, after I let my ego bruise kind of heal a little bit, then I thought, you know what? They're not wrong. I got so swept up into, whether or not I could, I never thought to think if I should. I was just like, slide whistle, that's quirky. I keep pointing over here because it's literally right over. This is quirky, let's use it. And then, nope, it broke the cue. It wrecked the cue. But at the end of the day, they were right. Another parenthetical anecdote from my year of taxi. I wrote an epic hip hop cue, submitted it for a company looking for sports hip hop music. So I'm like, all right, I got this. So I wrote a hip hop cue. I knew exactly what to do. I knew exactly how it sounded because, well, quite frankly, I've had a lot of success writing these types of cues over on another publisher, with another publisher. So I sent it along and returned. And so again, after I checked my ego, I thought, okay, what's the takeaway here? What's the teachable moment? The teachable moment was, don't take things for granted and do not be overconfident. Because I was totally overconfident. Now, as a coda to that story, I did send it off to my CBS publisher, and it made air like 2 weeks later on the NCAA tournament. So that's a happy ending, right? Not really the poignant learning teaching moment. But even that wasn't a given. But I think I was overconfident. So every time resistance wins, we talked about celebrating our own small wins and overcome resistance, but you are not always going to beat resistance. Every time resistance wins and you have a setback, look for the lesson, look for the teaching moment that you can take away. And if you can't find it, then ask a friend. Hey, this has happened, and I don't need you to just placate me. I don't need you to just tell me like, oh, it's okay, they're stupid and they're wrong, but help me to see what I can learn from this moment. And if you have a person like that or people like that in your life who can support you and speak honestly and truthful to you, then hold on to them because they are more valuable than gold. Having truth tellers in your life is so important. Which leads me to the way number 4 that I stay positive. Friends, surround yourself with like-minded people who are on the same path as you, maybe further along, maybe further behind. That's okay. But surround yourself with positive, encouraging, like-minded individuals who all agree to grow together. In fact, that's a quote that I saw from, what was it? Was it the Ugandan marathon running team? Like one of the Ugandan coaches has, like in their village, a sign that says, a community is a group of people who agree to grow together. Find your tribe. Find the community. Surround yourself with people who will support, who will encourage, who will speak truth in love and in kindness, but who are pulling for you, not against you. People who see you as colleagues, not competition. People who want to come alongside you, not step over you. People who want to lift you up, not bring you down in the sense of competition. Find your tribe. And I don't say that to tell you to come over to 52Qs, even though in a few minutes you're going to hear a commercial for 52Qs. It could be 52Qs. It could be Sync My Music. It could be the Make Music Income folks. It could be Production Music Academy. It could be what's happening over at Sync Beast. It could be what Clint's doing at Clint Music. It doesn't matter. It could be a Facebook group. It could be the trailer support group. It could be the Perspective Facebook community. It could be a Discord server. It could be a Kajabi network. It doesn't matter what community it is. But find that community, because once you find people who resonate on the same frequencies as you do, then together, both this might get a little woo-woo-y, but I believe that that each individual and each spirit or soul or person or whatever vibrates at a certain frequency, and when you surround yourself with people who vibrate on the same frequencies, then everybody's frequency gets amplified. Everybody gets better by growing together. So whether it's 52Qs or somebody else, I know that 52Qs is a little bit more, like I said, woo-woo-y. That my my relentless positivity is a turnoff for some people. That's okay. Jesse's unapologetic candor is completely okay. If that resonates with you, because you're like, Dave, what are you talking about? Like frequencies and resonance? That's BS. That's fine. Of course, if you believe that, you probably didn't make it, 45 minutes into a podcast episode, but that's fine. The point is, find a community of like-minded individuals who all agree to the same social contract within that community of what we are looking to accomplish, and throw yourself into it. Participate, ask questions, answer questions, be kind, encourage one another, speak truth, but in kindness. We're not there to tear people down. We're not there to step over people. Yes, they're competition, but even beyond all of that, they're colleagues. They're not obstacles. How you find those communities? Well, you're looking at one way right now. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. The YouTube channel here at 52Qs exists to help people find the community. I'm not looking for like ad bucks and ad revenue from YouTube. I don't put any mid-roll ads or anything like that. And it's really, really minimized, I should say. But it's one of the biggest reasons I do a podcast episode today. Can I be real with you guys, talking about resistance and everything? Coming out of my doctor's appointment today and having blood drawn, and the realization that I'm going to have a colonoscopy, and having both ears flushed out violently, I didn't necessarily want to come and record a podcast episode, let alone one on positivity. That was resistance. And so I pushed through that resistance, and here I am sitting as I'm recording. It's 44 minutes into the recording session. And I am glad that I did, because I love my tribe. But we can't do this on our own, guys. We cannot just sit in our studios cranking out music all on our own and battling discouragement and battling resistance, feeling like a failure, telling ourselves lies, just in our perpetually dark studios, usually in headphones. It's such an insular gig that we have to plug into a whole greater than ourselves so that we can feel supported. So that we can sometimes feel not crazy. Sometimes, we need help reminding ourselves that we are not failures. In fact, it was the community during one of our feedback sessions where I was lamenting about the return on Waltz of Shame, which was the slide whistle. I was I say lamenting, but I was kind of ranting about it. I'm like, I'm upset about this. And it was the folks in the Zoom session was like, well, they kind of have a point, Dave. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. I don't know who screener 434 is, but I know like Jeff, and I know Michal and Hans and Yuka. I know these people. I feel like I need to name everybody now, but you know who you are. I trust them, and if they're like, you know what, I think the screener's right here, Dave, then okay, all right, step back. And then now I'm into my teachable moment. But it was the community that helped me do that. And again, folks, please hear me. I'm not here just to sell you on joining us at 52Qs, although we'd love to have you. But the point is find the community of like-minded individuals who are all agreeing towards pursuing the same thing with the same ethos, if you will, the social contract of here's how we're going to get there. So just to recap, number 1, always believe the best in other people. Number 2, take every opportunity to celebrate small wins. Number 3, treat every setback as a teaching moment. And then finally, number 4, find your tribe. But what do you think? Do you agree with these? Do you have any other thoughts, comments, or questions? How do you stay positive in the face of rejection and feeling like a failure and imposter syndrome and insecurity? Please let me know in the comments below. I would love to see those. I read all of the comments, and I would love to hear from you. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and I don't know how to transition into this. You are going to hear from an alternate version of me tell you about how you can join us here at 52Qs and all of the perks that go along with it. But when we return from that, we're going to be listening to an untitled ominous tension cue written in Ableton Live. We'll be right back. Every week I talk about how this episode and the podcast and the community, the channel, would not be possible without the amazing support of our family, friends, and neighbors, subscribers of 52Qs, who do pay their actual real-life money to keep all of this going. And in addition to being thriving members of the community, as well as supporting me and Shannon and everything that we're doing here, they also receive extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, hundreds and hundreds of hours of video archives, weekly cue breakdowns, production music almanac, living ebook, and the opportunities to submit to real music libraries. Now, it's free to join 52Qs. You can just go to 52qs.com and sign up, be a member of the community. We would love to have you. It will always be free to join the community. But if you've been watching, or if maybe this is your first time, but if you're wondering, is there a way to kind of level up my production music skills in the industry, meeting like-minded, super friendly, very generous composers, then why don't you think about subscribing? Memberships start at around $4 a month, and we would love to have you. Again, that's 52qs.com. That was my Untitled ominous tension cue that I wrote completely in Ableton Live. This was more kind of a composition experiment, and I wanted to start with a type of cue that I knew really well. Like I knew all the parts and everything that had to go on into making it. And I was really, really happy with it. Still some challenges just in basic moving around the interface and like getting used to the actual tracks kind of being on the right or the track names instead of the left. And so that was a little wonky, but it was nice to return to Ableton. I used to use Ableton so much more when I lived in Memphis in the early 2000s and 2010, 11, moved to Florida in 2012, where when I got my gig at Full Sail, I switched completely into Logic. But it was nice. It was like seeing an old friend from high school and kind of picking up right where you left off, but also realizing that a lot has changed since then. And so I really, really enjoyed it. For you family and friends subscribers, I will have a complete breakdown of this cue. And for you neighbor subscribers, you can see this cue being written in real time because it was featured during a recent weekly live stream. So that is going to do it for us this week. You definitely want to tune in next week because I'm going to be talking about what goes in to making a good cue. And what does good even mean? Is that good for the editor? Is it good for the composer? Is it good for the scene? Spoiler, yes to all. But that's what we're going to be talking about next week. The things that go into making a good production music cue. But that is next week, and so you definitely want to join me for that. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've had a great week, and I know that you are going to have an amazing next week. How do I know that, friends? Because I know, trust, and believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52 Cues podcast is copyright 2024 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community or becoming a member subscriber of 52 Cues, head over to 52cues.com.